August 11th. We are 18 days out from the start of college football season. Actually, a little sooner than that, I guess you could
More
say.
than sooner than that.
Yeah, because we got the week zero, they call it, like a Coke Zero,
The Thursday.
over in Dublin. So that'll be a big one. Rob Brown, Memphis, Brendan Martin, Ocala, Florida, Marion County, horse capital of the world. Lot to cover today. Look, take your phone and take a picture with your QR code. We're on live Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And Brendan is putting stuff out throughout the day. Nobody will outwork this guy. He is the best EP in the world. In line at Universal Studios a couple of weeks ago with his daughter. He's still working this thing. Hard work.
One more week of summer.
One more week of summer and school starts. Yeah, a lot to cover. We got two coaches with national championship rings. Coach Ellis Johnson, you know him, and my friend Pete Cordelli got one of those at Notre Dame. Ellis at Alabama, and a close call at Auburn. But we're going to cover a lot. Dave Bartoo, College Football Matrix on in the second half. We'll get into a lot of numbers and stuff, and why, the how, and the why of what makes college football so great. So let's get started with the coaches. We got them in here. It's a Monday morning staff meeting. I'm sorry we weren't in here at 4:30 in the morning with the way y'all coach, but guys, this is a great time of year. And, you know, you talk about all the stuff going on with talking season, Coach Spurrier calls it. But right now, y'all can remember, and you're living sort of vicariously, this time of year, you're out there early in the morning trying to build unity and get everybody ready for the games, because there's a lot of distractions coming at them. And Coach Johnson, we'll start with you, and we're going to go, defense, offense. At this point right now, if your guys have it, that's great. If they don't, how can you get it in 18 days?
Well, I don't know if you can. And every team's different, especially with this portal. So I think it's a harder job now than it used to be. You used to know at least 2/3 to 3/4 of your football team coming back, and you were focused on those other guys, trying to get them to understand the culture and so forth. Now it's like 55 or 60 new faces coming in the door every year. And I would say it's a huge challenge. And a lot of these younger coaches, I guess, have been used to it and come through it, so they do a little better job of it.
Pete, how long does it take to install a new offense legitimately?
Well, I'm like Coach Johnson. The one thing that's changed in college football in the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years is the advent of summer school. When Ellis and I first got into coaching, man, the NCAA wouldn't allow you to bring the freshmen in the summer and pay for it. And now with the portal guys coming in the summer and things like that, you basically have a whole new install in June. Then you get a week off for 4th of July, and now you come back and you get more things done. Back when we first started coaching, shoot, man, that install started that first week, but we were also in 2-a-days, and some places 3-a-days. So now that you have one practice a day, but you have all of June and July to get this in. Rob, in high school, they call it captain's practices. Yeah. When we were at Notre Dame, we finally had the indoor facility built, and I don't mind saying it. I used to write out a script every night and give it to Tony Rice and the quarterbacks and go, here, go run this. But the one thing we also did was, we might have had a assistant video guy in there videoing it. Every now and then he might show up, just so. But hey, at Nebraska, and I think Ellis has probably heard this story, when Tom Osborne was coaching, Coach Osborne was big on fitness. He would walk around the field for an hour or two, depending on how long the players were on the field in the summer. And he's over there, and he's calling one of the GAs over going, hey, tell the quarterback that's not the right read. Tell the safety that's the wrong angle. I mean, so,
yeah.
Ellis, the one thing, when they told us as coaches we couldn't do something, you just go, okay, give me a day or two, and we're going to find a way to do something else.
Well, it is. And Coach Johnson, what Pete's saying about this time of year, we're looking at the SEC. Pete's in Nashville. I've known him over 30 years from Memphis, but started out in Chamonix, Pennsylvania. The Redskins up there, his dad coaching. I love this time of year. I was with a mutual friend of Pete and I's, Glenn Rogers at CBHS, and my son-in-law Brooks met us Friday for lunch at Vanelli's Deli, and it was just packed. And Glenn goes, "Man, is this a CBHS place?" I said, "It's an everybody place," but a lot of purple wave there. But Coach Johnson, right now, you're looking at the SEC. My top 6, and I'm going to throw it out there for red meat for both of y'all, in no particular order. This is how I'm seeing it right now. Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, A&M, Florida, and Oklahoma. In no particular order. And I'm not even including LSU, South Carolina, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, or Missouri, who's won 11 or more games, one of only 5 teams in the SEC to do it 3 or more times since 2011. Eli can coach.
Yeah, I think you could come up with 6 top teams. I don't know it. I wouldn't argue with yours, but you certainly have an argument for every one of them to be in there. But then you look and you leave out 4 teams, and somebody would say, "Man, how do you leave this team out?" Yeah. So I think it's a very hard year to pick it. Even Texas and Georgia, I don't think they're as stacked and as deep and everything in many positions as they have been at certain times. But until somebody knocks off Texas, I think you got to say they're the best football team. And it's going to be a really good year. I keep hearing how tough Florida's schedule is. And if Lagway's not healthy, and I mean totally healthy through every game, they're going to have a hard time without, maybe 2 or 3 losses hitting them. Everybody's got a freckle, if you will. But I would say that the 6 you named are as good as any other 6.
Pete, attack them, tear them up, or maybe you like them.
No, I really like Alabama a lot. Every time that we went into a new place to coach, it takes a good year to learn the new players, your new assistant coaches. And I thought that last year when Ryan Grubb decided to stay with the Seahawks and not come to Tuscaloosa with Kalen DeBoer, that threw a little curveball in the preparation because Kalen and Coach Grubb were together so long and had so much success and knew each other. Now you have to go and develop a new offensive coordinator. Then you have to learn the players. And it's not like you're just walking into any old place, right, Coach Johnson? Alabama is Alabama, man. And then after what Nick left, so just the transition. But now having Ryan Grubb back, the players understand what is expected of them in Kalen DeBoer's way of coaching. I thought their defense with Kane Womack at the end of the year was playing really well. Kane's dad, Dave Womack, was a GA for us in '83 at Arkansas. And then he went on to have a great career. And Kane, just like his dad, I mean, relentless, leaving no stone unturned in his preparation. And with the number of starters coming back on that defense, I like Alabama 1.
Okay.
I like Georgia 2. My concern about Texas is Arch is going to be Arch, and Ellis, I'd love to hear your take on this, but you're starting a freshman quarterback in Columbus. I think you're blitzing him before you even get off the bus, aren't you? To see if he can handle the pressure. Yeah. And so the Texas, look, they have speed at wide receiver, but they had to replace a number of defensive linemen. And you don't know how that's going to fit. And I think with Ohio State having to play a new quarterback or 2, they're going to try to establish the run game. And Ohio State lost some guys on defense. That's going to be a great game to start the season. Then you go to, I think Texas is 3. I got Alabama, Georgia, Texas. And then I got LSU. I just think with the guys they got in the transfer portal, they have a young defensive lineman that came in that a lot of people are comparing to when Jared Verse went to Florida State. Weeks is back. You've got some guys on defense. The offensive line's got to come on, but Durham as a running back is really good. And I think the steal of the transfer portal excuse me, I didn't mean to say that. The deal of
your crystals.
Yeah, the deal of the new players on your team is Barry Brown. He played here in Nashville, went to Kentucky. He's got all the speed that's necessary to take the top off of defense, but he's also going to be a big component in the kicking game as a punt returner, kickoff returner. I like LSU at 4, South Carolina at 5. Okay. And at 6, I'm with Coach Johnson. If Lagway stays healthy, Florida was playing the best of anybody at the end of the year. I don't know why Billy Napier didn't go to Lagway earlier in the season last year, but that's all behind us now. Lagway's got to stay healthy. I like Florida at 6. And I mean, A&M and Auburn and Missouri, I mean, my goodness. I'm like Ellis. You could go 6 more and and have a pretty good grouping as well. Yeah.
And Coach, off of what Pete just said, South Carolina, Lenora Sellers, what you saw out of him last year, as a defensive coach, but offense too, how do you want to attack him and the other top quarterbacks in the SEC like Arch? Let's say you are Ryan Day here right now, or you're the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. What do you think?
Well, Lenora is a fantastic athlete, not a well-seasoned quarterback, because the fact of the matter, he played in a high school in South Carolina, and I don't know how complicated they were or whatever, but he came to South Carolina. He was a little bit rough fundamentally, and I think overall, as far as reading coverages and that type of thing, he had a long way to go. His first year he started, he got hurt in about second or third ball game, didn't have a complete season, but you could see the flashes, you could see the physical talent. The biggest thing I think gives him trouble is when he doesn't know what he's looking at downfield. And so the problem of if you play too much man and he gets into the perimeter, he's gonna cut your throat. So in general, I wouldn't be afraid to pressure him occasionally, but I think the thing you do is you try to mix things up in the secondary with your disguises and so forth. And I think you play a little bit more zone, and you live with these 8 and 12-yard completions, and you play good in the red zone, et cetera. I think you'll get some turnovers off of him. I'm a little bit concerned about South Carolina because I think just because of Sellers, they're getting a tremendous amount of respect coming into the season, also based upon what they did in their finish last year. But they got beat by an Illinois team that had a good answer for them. And so I think the jury's still out, and they lost a tremendous amount of talent on defense. Yeah. I think they did a good job in the portal, but I don't think they replaced it on the same level. They do a heck of a job of coaching. They'll develop some of those guys. But in the SEC, you don't have 6 developmental games on your schedule. You're into the heat of the battle pretty quick. And so I think some folks have got them overrated, but they're going to beat some teams. They're going to win 2 or 3 ball games this year. It's going to completely destroy somebody's schedule there, because they have somebody that has a shot at that title or has a shot in the playoffs, and South Carolina is going to beat them and ruin their season.
Yeah, Pete, looking at Missouri, and Eli Drinkwitz is I like him. I go to media days and different things. He's just one of the more open. He just tells you what he really thinks. Prebula, the transfer from Penn State, and if you don't think they can play football at Penn State, you didn't witness that beat down at Jordan-Hare in 22. That's the first time one of my fraternity brothers and I were at the game. First time he goes, I've never left a game early in my life, but I cannot take any more of this. I stayed the full 60. And it was an Amish whipping. I mean, it was brutal. How good can Missouri be? Because they're certainly flying under the radar. But if you talk about commitment, and Brendan referenced the Kroenke money coming in from Denver, they put over $300 million into Faurot Field on top of what else they're doing up in Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, I really like what Missouri's doing. Prebula is a very hard guy to contain. And I think what happened last year at Penn State, he thought Aller was coming out for the draft. And then Aller decided to stay in, and Andy Koltanicki and those guys and James Franklin convinced Aller to stay. So Privilege said, let's go. And in the system that Eli runs, he's going to make a huge impact. Rob, I do the Arkansas State home football games on ESPN Plus with Roger Twile. I've been doing it 6 years. This will be my 7th. And had a chance to watch Ahmad Hardy from UL Monroe, the freshman running back. He's special. And Missouri got him in the portal. And I know they lost Luther Burden, but they'll have some guys on the perimeter. And they run such a diverse offense. They can get the ball on the perimeter. They can run inside zone, outside zone. And then they also have the gap scheme runs. And Hardy, he can do it all. I mean, he's one of those backs that has great vision. Once he sees it, he plants that foot in the ground and he gets upfield. You know, all good running backs, they've got to have CBA, I believe. Controlled burst and acceleration. Control to read it, burst to get through the hole, and then can they accelerate away from that second, third level? And this kid has it. Now, defensively, they've got a couple guys coming back like Ellis, you know, they're flying under the radar. But Missouri's one of those teams that they're going to win a few statement games, and they could put this league on its ear just by their development.
Yeah. And Coach Johnson, what Pete just said, that's a team that's not in any of our top sixes. And they just know how to win. And Eli seems like he doubles down and triples down on the lack of respect. I mean, his opening comments at media days, good morning to the 14 or 15 of you that are in the room here. I mean, it was the last day. It was the first session. I stayed the whole time. I don't understand. If you're going to go to media days, stick it out, man. I never leave a game till they kneel for the post-game prayer, and I've seen some bad losses. But we all have raised children. Our parents never left one of our games early. Maybe they couldn't be there. Dad or mom was out of town on business. But there's something, too, about Sam Pittman at Arkansas, Coach. The offensive line – that's his deal. And Bobby Petrino in year 2, Talon Green is the quarterback up there. Ellis Johnson, you're in the room. You're putting the defense together. What does Petrino do that makes him so good at every stop along the way?
Well, as you know, I worked for him briefly, not only about a month, but been around him in that aspect, and also have coached against him too many times. He does a lot of things well, okay? Anybody as successful as him. Yeah.
Where do we start?
A lot of things, but the biggest thing that always was so hard to get your kids to understand and for us to try to stop, he did a lot more intermediate and deep routes and deeper drops. It was more of a pro-style attack, if you will. And I would look at his route concepts, and I'm talking about good third down and pocket pass and so forth. There was a route in every package, every call that would beat any coverage you called. So it got down to the point that if you didn't get to the quarterback and disrupt the timing of the play, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to stop him.
Yep.
Unless he had a kid who had not learned how to go through his progressions yet. But once Bobby gets a guy and he's got him schooled up mentally, knows how to read through progressions, his route concepts are really, really hard to stop. And he's going to always find a man matchup out there. And if the quarterback reads it right, he knows who to go to. You play 2 deep, you play 3 deep, you play whatever. Every coverage you got in your back pocket, if you call it, you know he's got a route that'll beat it. And if the kid can see it and he's protected, you're not going to stop him. And then the other thing is they're physical. You know, he has a physical approach to his running game.
Yeah, I remember when Bobby Petrino came to Auburn in 2002 from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And his father, I remember reading the statement, 29-year NAIA coach out in Montana. He's in the Hall of Fame, NAIA. Pete, let's talk about John Mateer. And we're getting an echo maybe, Pete, on your end. Are you on your phone or your laptop?
Laptop.
Okay. All right. I don't know if the echo, you can hear me okay, but I want to ask you about John Mateer. He came in from Washington State, as did Cam Ward to Miami. I don't know what it is about Pullman that people, I've heard of Escape from Alcatraz. Let's do a movie, Escape from Pullman, because people they go there, they get developed, and they leave. But he's got John Mateer is from a little town called Little Elm, Texas, another Texas QB1. And I really like Jim Nagy. I've had him on the show 7 times, I guess, the former director of the Senior Bowl. I used to ask him, have you ever thought about getting into coaching? Well, he's the GM at Oklahoma now, Pete. Brent Venables, I don't know if you know him, but I've heard so much about it. Coach Tuberville used to try to hire him every time there was an opening. He could never get him. But I think Brent Venables, and on top of anything, he's just a damn good guy. Got 4, he just seems like a great guy. But let's talk about Oklahoma and John Mateer and him as a quarterback. How big a difference or shock will it be coming from the Pac-2 at the time to the SEC? Or is he that good? It doesn't matter.
John Mateer's first college offer out of high school in Texas was to the University of Central Arkansas in Conway, Arkansas.
Wow.
UCA was the first school that offered him. They loved him. Damn. And he ended up going to Incarnate Word, which Eric Morris was the head coach there and did a tremendous job of installing that offense. And Incarnate Word, they struggled a whole lot. And then Eric got them going. And then Eric went to Washington State as the offensive coordinator. Well, now Mateer kind of follows in that same pattern. Yeah. But the great combination, again, we talk about relationships in this business. Mateer's offensive coordinator is now at Oklahoma. So it's not like he has to learn a new language, a new verbiage. There are only so many plays you can run in football. There's only so many calls on defense, but everybody calls them differently.
Yeah.
The advantage that Mateer has at Oklahoma is he's with a guy he's actually played under, and they've been through the fire before. Yeah. He understands how his coach is going to call a game, and his coach understands him. Now you come into Oklahoma, who's, they always have talent. And like Coach Johnson said earlier about Bobby Petrino, they have plays, man. They have answers. They've been through this. And now it's just finding the matchups. But the one thing that a quarterback always has to understand, and coaching quarterbacks, and you use this term a lot, it's an accurate KYP, know your personnel.
Yeah.
Just at Oklahoma, he's got to spend some extra time understanding who runs the 4-3 and who runs the 4-6. Is it the slot guy that can run the option route and get open? Or who's going to take the top off the defense? What are you looking for here? Now, you fit all those guys into the scheme that you brought or the plan that you brought from Washington State. I think the SEC is going to be pleasantly surprised, and some teams are going to be shocked at how good John Mateer is. And this will help Oklahoma and Brent Venables through this season.
Yeah, and it's another young offensive coordinator. Ben Arbuckle's only 29. You think that's an issue? I remember a guy named Joe Brady at LSU in 2019 was 29 years old. I got a daughter that's 29.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, Joe Brady had Steve Ensminger alongside him too now.
Yeah.
The Slinger's one of the best. Just ask Tubbs about that. Now, Slinger kind of, he had the final say on those play calls. But Joe Brady was special. But, to have the wisdom and the experience of Steve Ensminger, those two worked so well together. That helped Joe Burrow in that LSU offense.
Yeah, and I didn't want to leave him out. Steve Ensminger, also a straight-up guy. I mean, you're right. I mean, he's really good. Coach Ellis Johnson, man, this is fun. Pete, we can keep you about 5 more minutes, and I'll let you go, and then we're going to bring you back on here. Well, next week we can do this again. Before Coach goes, I want to ask you, Coach Johnson, talking about John Mateer, new guy in the SEC. Joe Sixpack out there in Olathe, Kansas, I always like to refer, or Peoria, Illinois, the demographic center of the universe. He's reading Phil Steele's magazine, okay? He's got his magnifying glass and a spotlight to read it, okay? Because it is hard to read. But by the way, Phil Steele's magazine, when it was rumored in 2020 during the virus summer, he wasn't going to publish it. It was just not possible. the people at Barnes and Noble, the ad firm came and said, we will eat any unsold issues, but we have an exclusive deal with you now. We got to have your magazine. But for people, Coach Johnson, that say, well, John Mateer, he ain't never been in the SEC. He ain't going to be able to handle the speed. Man, he ain't going to be nothing. How do you respond to that for Floyd R. Turbo in Peoria, Illinois, American?
Well, they got a point, but we won't know until he gets out there and gets it done. But one thing, you can't break it down personnel-wise any better than Pete did. The only thing I remember about last year was that their offensive line was extremely young, and they got their receivers beat up.
Yeah.
And really, who's the kid that went to Auburn? What's his name?
Jackson Arnold.
I mean, he didn't have a full deck.
No.
And I'm not excusing his poor play, but Pete's quarterback coach. He knows if you don't have targets to throw to, and you can't be protected consistently, and running game was pretty good, but it was just a one-dimensional thing. I think that's going to be the key to Mateer. To say that he can't do it, they just had one do it, and he went from there to Miami and was very productive. And I think he can be fine, but they've got to have good luck with those injuries, and they got to get the young receivers and the offensive line. That's got to be where the improvement comes, in my opinion.
Pete, I got a bobblehead behind me. Michael Jordan says to tell you hello, Christian Brothers, man. He said, I love me some Pete Cordelli. He saw you on the thing this morning. I got a bobblehead of Chris Johnson. I forgot how awesome. He pulled out a box of all these bobbleheads. Jeffrey Simmons out of Macon, Mississippi's in there. An old Oilers hooded sweatshirt, which my wife has quickly claimed as a sleeping shirt. But, man, Chris Johnson was the heck of a – how fired up are they in Nashville about Cam Ward being up there at the Mid-State? I mean, because he's a pretty damn good quarterback.
After what they went through last year with Levis, I mean, it's a whole new breath of fresh air. You've got a guy that can actually stay in the pocket, go through the progressions like Coach Johnson said earlier, and he's finding open targets. And he's got some guys on the outside, some guys to throw to, kind of like Coach Johnson was talking about with Oklahoma last year. Cam Ward, he's in the building every morning at 4:30. He's bringing those young guys with him. Wow. And they asked him about it last week before they went down and played in Tampa. And he said, look, I watched my father for 20 years get up at 4:30 in the morning and go to a job he didn't like, but he had to do it to help his family. He said, I get up at 4:30 and go to a job I love, and I want the guys around me to love it as much as I do. I mean, it's a 180 from what they had last year at that position. Now, the other thing is, Brian Callahan, the head coach, his dad, Bill, is one of the most respected offensive line coaches in the country.
Yeah.
They've revamped this offensive line. And, look, college football is behind the NFL and high school because the NFL has preseason games, high school have scrimmages and jamborees. In college, you got to be ready to go right out of the gate in game one. So by the end of September, you're doing some things that you said, if we would have had 2 preseason games, I might have made this personnel change. Cam Ward is experiencing the opportunities to get better in preseason before they start in September, which is going to be a huge advantage. Okay. And in the running game, Spears got hurt Saturday night. Tajay got hurt, the running back, so they're going to have a little depth there. But Cam Ward, I mean, his work ethic, his ability to move the ball down the football field, what a great addition he is to this Titan team.
All right, Pete, I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna do this next week. I want to talk about your book. We're gonna talk about it next week because it's getting close to the presses. But Pete Cordelli, are you on Twitter, social media, or any way people can follow you?
Shoot. My daughters laugh at me on social media. Holy mackerel. I still have a dial phone, man. Are you kidding me? I'm on that rotary deal.
There you go.
They look at my cell phone and my font is so big. They're like, Dad, we can see your font back in Memphis from Nashville. social media. Shoot, my social media is going down with Joe Sixpack having a beer. And say, yo, bro, what's up?
No wonder you're friends with Rob. You sound just like him.
I'm telling you, that's exactly right.
Same guy.
I'm learning.
Same guy, Coach.
It's something about Memphis, Brandon. I'm telling you.
Well,
Hey,
Coach,
Johnson,
he tells us all to get our pen and paper before the show, and it's like, Rob, we don't even know where a pen and paper are in my house right now.
Can I tell you this? When I went to work for Lou Holtz, he said when he worked with Woody Hayes at Ohio State, Coach Hayes always had somebody on the staff that had to take staff notes, give them to the secretary, pass them out. I was the note taker for 30 damn years. So I understand getting that pad and pencil out.
Here we go.
And if the notes weren't right, guess who got chewed out? Wasn't the secretary? It was me.
Yeah.
Coach Johnson, have you talked to Coach Stallings lately?
Not real lately. I need to give him a call. He's doing okay, I think.
Please tell him I said hello. My 2 years in Dallas, he was the secondary coach. Man, we got some great stories about Beebs.
Pete, get ready for next week. Get a copy of your book. And thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome. There it is right there. Making the grade.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about it next week. We'll be back on with you. Thank you so much, Pete.
Hey, this was so much fun. Thank you, Coach Johnson. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, Pete.
Thanks, Rob.
You bet. Talk to you this week. Let's bring in Dave Bartoo from College Football Matrix out in Oregon. I love it. He's practicing on the bow right now. We've got college football, a lot to talk about right now. And Dave, you've got the microphone on. We're running a little bit late today, so
all good. Dave doesn't seem to mind, Rob. He's just just cracking off some shots there. We need the other perspective to see how tight that.
How far is that target you're shooting at?
About 25 yards.
All bullseyes?
No, but I mean it's 25 yards. It's tight groups.
I love it. We've been talking with Pete Cordelli, who coached a long time with Lou Holtz in Arkansas, and bottom line, Ellis Johnson's on here with us, and Brendan and I. We're getting closer to college football season starting, Dave. And last week, Coach Johnson, you had a question for Dave, and I don't know if Dave had a chance. I know he's quite busy to look at the numbers. You were talking about guys leaving the SEC and how they performed. And there you go. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. There you go. Nice. Good stuff. Yeah.
Good stuff there. Yeah.
That's good stuff. That is good stuff there. And you were out. Yeah. Well, Dave, did you have a chance to look at guys that have left the SEC and see how they've performed when they've left? Or what's the stat that you gave about players that transfer down from Power 4 to a lower level school?
Right. Well, it started with the NFL because, and working in trying to find numbers in the NFL draft. And one of the things I've been tracking is guys that have a transfer on their resume in college football getting drafted into the NFL.
Okay.
And I looked at it from the standpoint of if a guy transferred down in a recruiting brand, right?
Yeah.
So you go from Georgia to a Georgia State. Yeah. You drop down a little bit at any level on your resume. These guys were not performing in the NFL at all. They'd get drafted. They'd average less than 3 games played per guy, and they were gone. So finding a guy that transferred down in college and drafting him that was any good is rare as a hen's tooth. Didn't happen very often. But on the flip side, guys who had a transfer up on their resume, Georgia State to Georgia, right? Temple to Penn State, guys that moved up, those guys were over 700% more successful per start per player than guys with the transfer down. Okay, so which seems like a lot of common sense, right? I mean, it's just the guy couldn't handle it at the bigger school and he transferred down. And I think too often we make excuses for these players that, for whatever reason, he couldn't stick there. And so I look at college football the same way right now. Is if I'm taking a transfer down and I tell this to head coaches I work with all the time, don't take the transfer down. I mean, at worst, take the lateral guy, but don't take the guy that's going to move down. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. Competition, just couldn't hack it there. But I think one of the biggest reasons is just psychological. If you're good enough to get recruited into the SEC and you can't make it there, and you transfer down, psychologically, how hard is it to go to work every day at a school that, you walk into the gym, it's different. The weight room's different. The food's different. The way you're treated is just simply different because it's a different socioeconomic status at that school. I think it's really difficult there. And you see a lot of programs that took a lot of transfers down. They struggle. They struggle a lot. Michigan State's a good example. They went out, got a lot of players, bunches of them, former high 4 or 5-star guys, transferred down to Michigan State. 2 years later, boom, destroyed. UCF last year, one of the biggest buyers of guys transferring down, poor season as well. So I don't have specific examples player by player, but at the NFL level and now at the college level, we're seeing a consistent pattern of you load up on transfer down guys, they're not going to perform for you.
Coach Johnson, does their value, I wonder, as a player, Dave, does that go up? I wonder when, I mean, I'm sure you don't have that number, but statistically, I wonder if it benefits the player more than it does the team or the coach per se.
Oh, I'm sure it benefits the player more than the team. Mm-hmm. Right. But like the GMs I work for, this is why I tell them, if you're going to get this guy, try to get it at a big discount. These guys don't perform. If you're going to draft, Rob Brown, and he transferred down he couldn't hack it at Georgia and ended up at Georgia Southern, don't draft him late. No. Those guys don't pan out. So, there's a lot of recency bias, I think, if you're a college GM or you're a head coach saying, okay, this was a 4-star guy. This guy got accepted into Auburn. This guy got accepted into LSU. He obviously has a lot of talent, but there's something missing because he couldn't even crack the 2 or 3 deep. I think that's tough. I really do. But, being able to figure it out player by player is a little more difficult. I just wouldn't load up on those guys.
Ellis Johnson, weigh in here on this because I'm Dave's putting out facts, and you've seen it firsthand as a coach, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, first of all, it goes back to recruiting. College coaches make mistakes. Hell, the pros in drafting, they've got more opportunity to evaluate and get much deeper into the process than the college coaches can, and they make mistakes. So that's the first thing. Anybody can make a mistake, but I think what Dave hit on, if a guy has to transfer down, first of all, the logical thing is he probably just wasn't quite as good as maybe they thought he was. But the more important thing that you keep mentioning, Dave, it might be an indicator that they won't push through the hard times and they can't grind. They can't hit it. And if you can't do that when you come to the pros, you get lost real quick. I remember back when the NCAA 15, 20 years ago, when they put in the 20-hour rule or the 40-hour rule or whatever it was we had, and they also had to have a mandatory day off in the week. When they started limiting all these practices and they started limiting the amount of time that college coaches could have the players, the pro guys told me 3 or 4 years later, they were able to tell that was going on because they had guys that couldn't focus all day in a pro environment because they meet the hell out of them. I mean, it's 4 and 5 hours a day of meetings before they go on the fields and stuff like that. And they said these guys couldn't handle the focus and the consistency and the grind on the pro level. So it definitely is a factor, but there's no question you hit on it.
Dave, looking around, at the schools, I watch a lot of you talk to coaches, NFL folks. Dave, your company, College Football Matrix, in addition to Lights Out Gummies, which, by the way, absolutely work. They are the real deal. You put together coaching staffs for college and NFL teams. So you're seeing this data play out in real time. And I know you and Brendan had a discussion about AI the other day. What's going on with that? It's fascinating, people. And we got 2 the elite minds, I think, that I've ever seen right here on top of each other with AI and football. I want to ask you about in the SEC, the lack of guys sticking around on the 2 and 3 depth charts that you used to develop, what you had 5 years ago. Now, let's say Kirby Smart. He's your best defensive coordinator of the last 15 years. He doesn't have that kind of depth, but his teams are tough as nails, and they never quit fighting, even though the depth isn't there.
Yeah, I just think it's a different world without the depth. And I think even Kirby noted it in the SEC media days that these guys aren't working as hard. They're not as motivated, and that's a byproduct of the money, and it's not just the money, it's the social media, it's the praise, it's everything. And so I think it is another reason why there's more parity in college football, not because the talent is spread out as much, because I still think it's consolidated. I still think your Georgia, your Alabama, your LSU, your Texas, your Oregon, your Ohio State, Notre Dame, you're still going to get the talent, right? Whether it's high school talent or transfer talent, you're still the biggest brands with the most money. That doesn't change ever, well, a little bit. You get an Oregon, but you need a gazillionaire CEO of Nike to make some kind of change like that permanent. But I just think the depth is lacking, but I also think the motivation is down.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't think we're going to see serious change in the NCAA until the NFL starts complaining about it.
Yeah.
Coach Ellis just touched on a little bit ago about how the motivation of players, these guys going in the NFL and so forth. I don't think we're going to see much change until the NFL starts saying what we're getting now is an inferior brand of football, and we have to do something to get these guys better prepared for the professional level.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to start seeing, we're going to see more injuries and stuff, or you're going to see more players, because the motivation's a little different, right? You're making money, you're making good money in college right now.
Right.
You don't have to bust your ass as hard, in a sense of like, you don't have anything to prove to some degree. You want to play pro, but you also want to make sure your college career is continuously successful. I mean, I don't know, Dave.
Oh, well, okay. You touched on a few things there, and a little sidebar to that nobody ever talked about. Okay. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter were both 4 and 5 star level guys coming out of high school, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't go to a big school. They went to Jackson State. And then they transferred up to Colorado, who hasn't been in the top 50 in recruiting in the last 20 years. Okay. Did that affect Travis Hunter? No, not at all. Lost in this is the message that if you have the physical genetic talent, and if you have the mental toughness to keep grinding, it doesn't matter where you go to school. It doesn't matter. You either got it coming out of the womb or you don't. These guys are wired, and they are genetically wired mentally and physically to do the job. So Colorado State, LSU, Ohio State, I don't think it matters, but nobody ever talks about that, number one. Number two, injuries, starts lost per snap. That has been owned by the biggest conference in college football for the last 15 years. Year over year, the SEC loses more starts to injury per snap than any other conference. Do you know who the biggest, fastest, strongest conference is per player in the country? The SEC. The number 2 conference that's biggest, fastest, strongest is the Big Ten. Guess who's number 2 in injury rate? The Big Ten. So if I believe in myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and if you want to protect your body while being paid, you go to a conference that has a lower injury rate. The Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC has a significantly lower injury rate. And if the SEC goes to 9 games and we have all these playoff games, the injury rate just keeps ticking up. But nobody talks about this in terms of overall body value as a professional player. And I know we're talking about a small sliver of players, but if I have the ability to stick in college for 5 years, maybe get to the pros, I think more guys should be talking about how can I play full speed and learn and get snaps and not get hurt. That's in the smaller conferences. If Travis Hunter can do it, anybody can do it. And I'm not saying anybody's as good as Travis Hunter. I'm just saying he is the poster child for that 5-star athlete going anywhere he wants and still being in the first round.
Yeah, and Coach Travis was from Sewanee, Georgia, Collins Hill High School, #1 player in the country, committed to Florida State, and then he went to Jackson State on signing day. Here's an interesting stat before I go back to Coach. In the Super Bowl, Tampa Bay and Kansas City just a few years ago, of the players on the roster on the field, there were like 24 stars, 22 3-stars. The rest were a mix. And on those two rosters combined, there was one 5-star. A kid out of St. Augustine High School in New Orleans, LSU running back Leonard Fournette. And he had come off, an escape from a 1-15 Jacksonville nightmare. So grit and grind, Coach. When you get kids in practice, and I'm just going to tell you one, you think about you're the #1 player in the country, and you come in there and all of a sudden you've got Byron Cowart came to Auburn in 2015, #1 player in the country, Armwood High School, Sefner, Florida, 2A ball. He gets up there to Auburn, and he's got to compete against Carl Lawson, Montravius Adams. Sometimes, when you got to work for it, it's not as much fun. It's not as easy. And that's where the mental aptitude, the toughness, make it or break it, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that alongside what Dave's talking about, though, when I was at South Carolina and we'd be recruiting against Clemson, we didn't have as much head-to-head as you might think. But being two in-state universities, of course, you're always looking for an angle.
Yeah.
So we always put our schedule in front of these kids in recruiting and say, you want to play these guys? And then we put their schedule in front of them, and it wasn't nearly as flashy.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go up to Boston College one day and play in front of 30,000 people. Is that fun?
Yeah.
You come on down here. We're gonna play LSU at night in Columbia at Williams-Brice.
Yeah.
And so that was our angle. And what are they doing on the other side? They're talking about having won more championships. And they're saying, son, you keep playing that schedule for 4 years in a row. You won't play in all of those games. You'll end up getting hurt, and you'll miss about a third of them. So that everybody has their little angles. But that recruiting battle we had going on, it was really a lot of what you've been talking about, Dave. They were selling, you're going to be a healthier, better prospect for the NFL. And they're going to see you play against great teams because we're going to the playoffs.
Yep. Dave, your brain works in a way that, like, you could look at a Leroy Neiman painting on the wall and make sense out of it. I remember Leroy Neiman. I mean, what is this? But go back to that stat. And Dave, this is what I see. Kid has a great freshman year. People like to call it a sophomore slump. I think people get to him and say, you better take care of yourself. Then their junior year, they play hard the first 3 or 4 games. Then they kind of come up with some injuries like turf toe or something so they can be ready for the NFL. But they've never really put out 3 seasons in a row. How long will they put up with that crap in the NFL?
Oh, that's a really subjective question about one player. Again, it comes down to the mental fortitude, right? What is your mental stamina? How hard can you grind? I think it's up to each NFL franchise to figure out how they evaluate players. But I do feel that if you have a guy that loafs, that doesn't give 100%, that's not the first guy in, last guy out, you might be able to sneak by, getting drafted. You might be able to sneak by, somehow getting on that team, making a roster. But over time, as the funnel shrinks, and every player becomes incrementally more athletic, and every player becomes incrementally more mentally driven and mentally tougher, and you're going up against a guy who's got 3 kids at home, and that's his entire livelihood. If you don't have your full mentals going into the professional level of any sport, Yogi Berra said it the best. 90% of this game is half mental. There is so little that separate the top guys athletically. So little. Health and mental stamina are key parts to it. And if you don't got it, it's going to get you sooner than later every single time.
I'm reminded of just seeing Kurt Warner, sign that big deal. I forget what TV, I think it's Fox or whatever, but just thinking of his story, right? How the mental toughness, size, everything, arena ball, using that to his advantage, learn, a quicker release, all these things, but just undeniably gonna play football. I don't think we'll ever probably go. We'll always have that person who's hungrier, right? I mean, at some point we'll reset, and like you said, Dave, somebody's going to start to reset that bar. But we're just sort of maybe in a little bit of limbo there right now until we figure out this next step with college football.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think as a whole, like when Kirby Smart talked about my team as a whole isn't as motivated. Okay. But his whole team isn't going to the NFL, right? He's gonna have a half a dozen or a dozen players on his team, NFL prospects in the future, now and in the future at any point. And so again, as that funnel shrinks down, he talks about the team as a whole, but there's always going to be the guys that are wired to be driven to be the best they can every single game. They don't take a game off. They don't take a day off. They don't take a play off, nothing. And those guys are always going to be there. And as that funnel shrinks, getting in the NFL, I mean, look, what are they drafting? 250 guys a year? You just start getting down there. And I think the mental toughness is always going to be there. I just think as a whole in college football, as a composite roster, maybe we're seeing it falling, but those individual elite players are still going to be hardwired to excel.
It's only, 7 times 32, do the Gazendas. I got my Jethro computer here, 224. That's it. There's not that many players. So you used to have 14, 15 rounds. So Mr. Irrelevant's the 224th best professional football player. And your odds of making it as a free agent, are less than if you're drafted. But Dave, let me ask you this, and I'm gonna go back and forth in the last 8 minutes. Top 6 in the SEC teams in no particular order, if you can come up with that. We've been bouncing it around. Pete Cordelli did, I did, Coach Johnson did. Curious what you think.
I think, my rule is recruiting. Okay. Over the last 20 years, if you take the number one high school recruiter out of each conference, 4-year moving average, put all their win totals together, they have more wins than the number 2 recruiter. The number 2 recruiter has more total wins than the number 3 recruiter, and then the number 4 recruiter. It just literally steps down level by level. So when I look at the SEC, I start with your top recruiters. Your Georgia, your Texas, your Alabama, your LSU. Now, this was supposed to be LSU's window, in my opinion, and they're going to miss it because Texas has a new quarterback and they still have Steve Sarkisian. Alabama has a new quarterback. Georgia has a new quarterback. LSU had a returning veteran quarterback, but I don't believe in the staffing. I don't believe Joe Sloan is even close to any of those other 3 offensive coordinators in those top programs. I don't think they got the worst defensive coordinator of those 4. So I lean right off the top, the 3 best recruiters, Texas, Alabama, and Georgia. Yeah. So then you go to your next group. You got Oklahoma, you got Ole Miss, you got South Carolina, you have Florida. Ole Miss, I think they lost too many guys. They lost their veteran starter at quarterback to the NFL, and he never accelerated the program beyond talent. So I don't think Jackson's going to be that successful on Sunday because he wasn't that successful on Saturday. And I think they lost too many players last year to the draft. And so I kind of tossed them out. And you got Tennessee in there. So I think I got to throw Oklahoma out just because Venables hasn't been able to put it all together. And there's a lot of question marks still there. They get a veteran quarterback coming from Washington State, but that wilted in November. And I think having a pass-dominated offense in the SEC is going to be exceedingly difficult with the athleticism. So I'll stick with my next three. Tennessee, from a talent standpoint, they got one of the better head coaches. They got one of the best offensive coordinators. They have a really solid defensive coordinator, top 15 recruiting. Same thing with South Carolina. They got an excellent defensive coordinator. They got a good head coach. They have arguably top 2 returning starting quarterbacks coming back in Lenora Sellers. And then the sixth one, the schedule might not reflect it, but because the schedule is so difficult, the record might not reflect it. I'll go with Florida. Solid OC, solid head coach. Ron Roberts is a 3.5 plus, almost 4-star DC. So you got solid coaching, you got top 20 recruiting there. And I think the returning quarterback is the thing that puts them over the top as in my top 6. So I'll stick with the better recruiters, with the good quarterbacks and the good coaching for the SEC this year.
Coach Johnson, you heard what he said. I love that statement. Jackson Dart was unable to accelerate the program past talent. That's what we mean when we talk about transformative players that can really push. I love that, Dave. That is brilliant. Coach, what do you think?
Yes, I think that's a good statement. He had a good game yesterday against the exhibitionists.
Yeah.
But, I see the point there. No question.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating, Dave. All right, we got to wrap up here, but wow, you are spending. You're outside right now, but you're probably up at crazy hours putting together these coaching staffs. Tell people real quick how they can follow you, College Football Matrix and all, and look forward to having you back on next week. This is absolutely, every time I'm like, I never knew that.
I do sleep from 11 to 5. So I do have downtime. You can follow me on Twitter at CFB Matrix. You can hit me on the text line 971-217-8419. On Twitter, the DMs are open. On Instagram, the DMs are open. I'm pretty easy. My last name is pretty uncommon. So if you want to track me down, it's not too difficult.
All right. Well, look, man, Coach Johnson, I think every week when we're on here, we think of stats and stuff like that. But boy, that stat about if you go down, that's pretty much you're checking out, you know?
Right,
like, yeah. Gentlemen.
Travis Etienne. I mean,
yeah.
Go on and on. Not that I'm talking smack.
No, but it's true. Follow it. If you're listening, if you're watching as a fan, follow these guys. Remember it. Become a smarter fan, right? When guys get drafted, like we talked about Jackson Dart. Okay, here's one of my rules: if you can't carry the bags on Saturday, you can't carry the bags on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I said Trey Lance was going to be a bust. Okay, that's why I said Fields was going to be a bust. That's why I said, all these guys. Look at them. If they can't accelerate a program on Saturday, how the hell are they going to do it on Sunday? They can't. All your guys in the NFL that start accelerated their programs beyond talent. Almost every single one of them. That's why Brock Purdy was the number 2 guy on my quarterback list, because he accelerated Iowa State way past. So we'll have more next week. Penalties. Next week, we'll talk about penalties and why the SEC has way more penalties against their favorites than their underdogs in 2024.
Watch out, Phil Steele.
I'll call you, Dave. We got to catch up. Dave Bartoo, thank you very much.
Yeah, Brandon, give me a call. My phone croaked that day. It was
We'll solve the world's problems this week.
Before midnight.
Thank you, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
Dave, thank you so much. Coach Johnson, thank you as well. Wow, we are blessed. Let's say something. Get out to Landers Ford, people. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Collierville and Germantown meet. Open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Service department provides round-trip transportation. Ask for the GM, Brad Bellamy. I wonder if he's related to the Bellamy brothers, but Brad Bellamy, the GM at Landers Ford, will help you get in a car, truck, or SUV of your choice. And Hewlett and Dunn, boot and clothing company on the historic square. Get out there. Man, they're getting in stuff now about every day. The Barber, the Filson, the Duckheads, the Stetsons, man, the Old South, the STS Pendleton Schaefer. They've got great looking men's and women's boots, clothing, boots for kids. Got it all. Wow, Brendan, that looks awesome at Hewlett & Dunn. Get out there, hewlettanddunn.com. They'll ship anywhere. Hey, And thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you tonight on the same channel. Have a great day, everybody. Good night, John Boy. Most often, we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Take care.